Chris came out with this pretty incredible call, 130 on sterling. Chris, is that whether the UK leaves the EU or not? Is it going to be, are we in bear territory no matter what happens?
I think we're in a bear market irrespective of what the macro backdrop here is. And when we look at the price action here over the last 30 or 40 years on pound, that 140 level has been tested 3 or 4 different occasions. I'm not convinced it holds this time. I think at the very least you have to circle that 135 type neighborhood on this chart here.
But how do you model, Chris? And I know your technical analysis tries to leave the news aside, but how do you model a Brexit?
We don't, and that's well beyond what we do when we look at charts. And in fact, I think what's important about our work is making the call irrespective of the Brexit backdrop. This is a picture that has been under pressure for the better part of the last year and a half. I think globally, a lot of currencies versus the dollar continue to weaken here. This is still a dollar bull market in our view.
Well, then the dollar bull market, and this is where I want to go. Let's look at a chart we did yesterday, and I say thanks to Robert Burgess and our currency fixed income team for perspective on this, particularly S.G. Nelson's article on what Francine brought up on Brexit. Here's sterling back to Thatcher, back 30 years. And we've got a real stability and a 1 standard deviation move. And here's the weakness before. For those of you that aren't sophisticates on this, Verone's call is to new 30 and 40-year weakness on British pound sterling. Help Dr. Schilling here. Chris Verone, does that get us to a dollar that goes through the Reuben dollar strength and becomes Plaza Accord-like?
Well, let's look at the DXY here. The DXY right now at about 95 is sitting directly on the 50-year average. Nothing is average in our business for very long. You're either 2 standard deviation above or 2 standard below. I think we could see DXY at 115 or 120 over the next couple of years. That gets pound lower, that gets euro lower.
Fold this into the 47 books you've shilled in this hour, including The Age of Deleveraging. Currency is
shameless plug.
Currency is the litmus paper of the system. When you hear Mr. Verone talk about 11 big figures in sterling and a DXY to 115, this becomes Washington's problem, doesn't it?
Well, it becomes Washington's problem because it's the rest of the world's problem. But bear in mind, Tom, that we have a relatively small export exposure in this country. 13% of GDP, Canada's 30%, Germany is 50%. We're taking the brunt of the rest of the world devaluing against us. And it's almost like after World War II, when we took the brunt of rebuilding Japan, rebuilding Europe. In other words, that's a way of maintaining world order.
Who are we rebuilding now? China?
We're trying to stabilize the world when you basically have a deflationary world that very few politicians understand. Now, I'm not sure politicians explicitly look on that in Washington and say, well, it's up to us to be the stabilizers of the world. But in effect,
Gary,
that's the role they're playing.
You're the world's engine of growth. It goes with the job description.
Pardon me?
It goes with the job description.
Oh, sure.
You're the single biggest engine of growth.
The world, yeah, look, I mean, you're in the UK, Francine. That's what you did in the 19th century. You basically stabilized the world.
And you were there. Gary Schilling, thank you so much.
Come on,
Gary Schilling. Oh, I was there too. Chris Verone, fabulous. Thank you so much.
I was a youngster, though.
We got to do this like every 90 days. We got to get a thing going here with Verone and Schilling. This was just absolutely wonderful.